back to Justice, a new podcast where I'll be covering the stories of true crime cases that have received justice and cases that are still seeking justice. I'm your host, Lindsay. Today, I will be covering the murder of Karen Buckley, who disappeared from a nightclub in Glasgow, Scotland after a night out with friends and was later found murdered. Karen Buckley was born in 1991 in Mourneabbey, Cork, in the Republic of Ireland. She grew up on a farm with her 3 older brothers and her parents John and Marion. She had what is described as a normal upbringing, attending a Catholic high school, playing Gaelic football for her local team, and enjoying time with her friends and family. Karen enjoyed travelling, and her kind and compassionate nature led her to want to study nursing in order to help others. She did exactly that, and attended the University of Limerick, and graduated with a degree in nursing. Karen spent a few months working in the Princess Alexandra Hospital in Essex in England, before moving to Glasgow to study occupational therapy at Glasgow University. It was here in Glasgow that Karen moved into a flat in Garnet Hill, which, if you know the city, is near the Glasgow School of Art. She shared the flat with 3 other Irish girls who were all students at the same university, and the flat itself was about a 5-minute walk from the city centre, where all the shops, pubs and clubs are. The group of flatmates were very sociable, and of course were living a normal student life in Glasgow, often going on nights out together and enjoying the student nights that were hosted around them. On the evening of April the 11th, 2015, Karen and her 3 flatmates got ready in their flat for a night out in town. The girls got dressed up nicely, wearing jumpsuits, dresses and heels, as this was often the dress code for well-known clubs around Glasgow at the time. Karen dressed in nearly all black, with a black short jumpsuit, black leather jacket and with some red high heels on. The group of girls had decided to go to the Sanctuary nightclub, one of the very popular clubs in the West End of Glasgow. The club opened up in 2013 and could hold up to 400 guests in the venue, which at the time and for the area was a relatively large nightclub. The girls got a taxi from their flat and took the 10-minute journey to the club, where they arrived around 11:25 p.m. There was already a large queue outside, as IDs were checked and the groups of people going in paid at the door and got their hands stamped by the door staff, meaning the girls ended up standing outside for nearly 20 minutes before they were let inside. When they got in, the girls ordered some drinks at the bar and spent the next hour or so dancing, socialising and drinking with each other. At around 1 a.m. on Sunday, April the 12th, Karen left the nightclub. She had left her leather jacket behind with a friend, as her dress zip had broken, and she'd given it to her to help her cover up and carry on her night. But Karen had decided that she wanted to go home. She had assured the girls that she would get a taxi back to the flat, and due to the fact she wasn't drunk, she would be fine by herself. Karen left the club and crossed over the road to the other side. It was here that she met Alexander Pacteau. In the CCTV footage from outside the nightclub, he appears to engage her in conversation. They walk together a little further down the road, and then in the direction of Pacteau's parked car. I'm going to backtrack here and tell you a little bit about Alexander Pacteau and his night leading up to meeting Karen. Alexander Pacteau was born in 1994 to a French father and a Scottish mother. His dad owned a successful courier business, and his mother stayed at home to keep the house and to raise the children. He grew up in Bearsden, Glasgow, which is known to be an affluent area, where houses can be bought and sold for well over £1 million. Pacteau was the oldest of 4 children, and he was described as a very badly behaved child growing up. It is said he was very obnoxious, he often threw tantrums when he didn't get his own way, and he caused mischief, to the point that he was given the nickname Trouble by friends and family. Pacteau attended the private, fee-paying day school Kelvinside Academy, and he was described as being an average student academically. He was socially awkward, and he had quite a small group of friends. During this time, his father's courier business collapsed. Pak To had to then move schools to the non-fee-paying Bearsden Academy. And although 6 years of secondary education are available in Scotland, he left there after S5 in 2011. After school, he began a business course, but he dropped out quickly, not completing it in the end. In the same year that he left school, in November 2011, Pak To was accused of attacking a 24-year-old woman after approaching her outside a nightclub. The woman had agreed to taking a taxi with him, but as they were searching the street for the car, he pushed her into a dark alley and allegedly sexually assaulted her. The woman began screaming as this was happening, and two men who overheard this while they were out on their balcony rushed to help her. Pak To was not found guilty of this assault during the trial in 2013. In the same year, Pak To's parents went through a divorce, and he decided he wanted to go and live with his mother. She moved to a small village near Loch Lomond, but very quickly Pak To moved back in with his father. But this wouldn't last for long either. Pak To did not get on with his father's new girlfriend, and after a particularly nasty argument, he kicked him out. Pak To moved into a flat in Drumchapel, but again ran into trouble with the law. He struggled to find or hold down any job, and as a result he began forging banknotes, but was quickly caught, once again attending court in 2014, where he was convicted, and he was ordered to carry out 25 hours of community service. It is then believed he started up his own trading company and moved to a flat in Kelvinside in Glasgow. On the night of April the 11th, 2015, whilst Karen and her friends were getting ready for their night out, so was Pak To. At around 11 p.m, he ordered 2 taxis to his flat in Kelvinside to bring himself and 7 of his friends to the Sanctuary nightclub. The group had booked a booth at the club together, and they were keen to start their night out, but only one of the taxis turned up to the flat. As a result of this, Pak To decided to drive some of his friends in his own car instead. He parked about 100 metres away from the doors of the Sanctuary and entered the club around 11:38 p.m. Just before 1 a.m, Alexander Pak To left the Sanctuary Club to step outside. He returns inside briefly and then once again steps outside, walking up and down the road across from the nightclub. This is where he stops Karen Buckley and begins speaking to her. As I said earlier, the two walk together a little further down the road and then in the direction of Pak To's parked car and out of sight of the CCTV camera that had been following them so far. This would be the last time that Karen Buckley would be seen alive. Karen's friends carried on their night out and returned home to their flat in the early hours of the morning on April the 12th. Although Karen was not home, they'd assumed she might have met somebody and gone back to theirs for the night. However, by the time it reached midday, and Karen still had not replied to any text messages or calls and had not been heard from, her friends grew concerned and contacted the police. The police leapt straight into action and interviewed the 3 flatmates to get a picture of Karen and the events of the night. They then also contacted Karen's parents, who were in Ireland, in order to tell them the unfortunate news that their daughter was missing. John and Marion Buckley flew to Glasgow as soon as they could and began the media campaign that often comes along with a missing person. They made appeals on the news for any information or help with Karen's disappearance, particularly asking those who were at the nightclub or in the area to come forward with anything, no matter how small or insignificant that thing might be. Police, of course, were also reviewing any CCTV from the nightclub and from the area at the time. It was during this review that they were able to spot Karen talking to an unknown man outside of the club. They also noticed a car driving away from the club around the last moments that Karen was seen. Police Scotland released some of the screenshots from the CCTV footage to the public, asking anyone who might know the man, the car, or might have seen Karen to come forward with information to help them further the case. Luckily, some witnesses did come forward, and the police were quickly able to identify the man as being Alexander Pacto and the car as belonging to him. On Monday the 13th of April, police called at Pacto's flat, but he was not home. They returned around 6 p.m. and he answered the door to them this time. When he answered the door and saw the police outside, he told them that he was actually on his way to speak to them anyway. When the police entered the flat, they noticed that it smelled very strongly of cleaning products, and in particular bleach. The flat itself was not overly clean or well looked after, so this immediately stood out to the police as being suspicious. As they were looking around, they made note of some unusual objects that looked out of place in his bedroom, such as a toolbox, a roll of tape, scrubbing brushes you would usually use to clean under your nails, and oddly, his mattress did not actually fit his bed frame, being it was too small. The police set about questioning Pacto inside his flat, and he told them his version of events. He said that he had seen Karen outside the Sanctuary nightclub, and that they had got chatting, just like the CCTV had shown. He then went on to say that Karen had indeed come back to his flat with him, but had left in the early hours of the morning, and he had not seen or heard from her since. The police noted this down and asked Pacto to come to the police station in Govan to give a formal witness statement, which he did on the 15th of April. However, during the formal statement at the station, police noted that the story had now changed. Pacto maintained that he had spoken to Karen and that she had indeed returned to his flat that night, but he now told police some more information. He said that they had both had some drinks together at his flat, and then the two had had consensual sex, but at some point he claimed that Karen had hit her head on his bed frame and then had decided to leave the flat at 4 a.m. to walk home. Pacto said that he woke up the next morning and saw blood on the bed sheets and the mattress from Karen's head injury. When he saw the news that Karen was missing, he panicked, thinking the blood on his sheets would make him guilty in the eyes of the law. So he tried to clean the blood up, which would explain the smell of bleach and cleaning products. He told the police that he couldn't clean the blood, so in a panic, he decided to take the mattress and the bed sheets out to a forest where he burned them. During this visit, police did a search of his clothes, and they found a receipt for a Draining blocker, caustic soda, and 2 small keys. After questioning Pacto, the police sent him with officers to stay in a Holiday Inn, which is a hotel chain, whilst they searched his flat properly. At 11:55 p.m, forensic investigators arrived at his flat and began to process the scene. They also sealed off access to the property and taped off his car, which was parked outside in the street. The swabs that the police had collected from Pacto's flat confirmed the presence of Karen Buckley's blood at the scene. On Tuesday the 14th of April, a member of the public came forward to police to tell them that they had found a handbag in the rubbish bin at Dalsham Park, which is a 5-minute drive from Pacto's flat in Kelvinside. The member of the public had looked in the bag, finding it suspicious, and once they saw a mobile phone and Karen Buckley's passport, they knew it was very important to get it to the police. Very quickly, the police took action, and they mounted a large-scale search of the park and the surrounding area. They made use of sniffer dogs and a search helicopter to aid them, as the park is quite a large area to cover. Unfortunately, they didn't find any more evidence, but swabs from his car tyres matched the mud and soil that is specifically found in Dalsham Park, and it linked Pacto to having been there recently. This raised even more suspicion to the police, as if Karen had left his flat at 4 a.m. to walk home, she would have gone the opposite way to the park. Not only that, there was no innocent reason why Pacto would have been there either in his car. The next day, on the 15th of April, police arrested Alexander Pacto in a Starbucks in the city centre of Glasgow, due to enough evidence now being mounted against him to make him a firm suspect in Karen's murder. Another member of the public, who used to work with Pacto, came forward to police to inform them that there was a farm called High Craigton that he used as storage sometimes, as there was a number of sheds and storage units on the farm that may be of use to the case. The police immediately drove to the farm, and a team began searching for anything that might help them find Karen. Eventually, in one of the sheds, they found a blue plastic barrel, hidden under a sheet, a paper shredder and an old bicycle wheel. Due to the fact the police knew that he'd purchased chemicals, they had to call the fire service in order to make sure that the barrel was safe for them to examine. When they were able to finally open it up, they unfortunately found Karen's naked body in a barrel full of the caustic soda. The barrel and Karen's body were moved to the Southern General Hospital in Glasgow, where a post-mortem was carried out. The post-mortem revealed that Karen had suffered soft tissue injuries to her neck, defensive wounds on her arms and hands, and had been subject to heavy blows on her head that were so severe they had fractured her skull, leading to a subdural hemorrhage. And now we get to the true timeline of events that Alexander Pacto had tried his best to cover up. Please note that the details of what happened to Karen's body after she died are very disturbing, so listener discretion is advised. Police believe that when Pacto and Karen Buckley met outside the nightclub on Sunday the 12th of April, he had offered her a lift back home to her flat. Instead, Pacto drove to Kelvin Way, and it was during the 12 minutes he was parked there that he killed Karen by grabbing her throat and hitting her on the head with a spanner. He then drove to Dawsholme Park with Karen's body still in the car and disposed of her handbag. He then drives back to his flat, where he carried Karen's body upstairs to his bedroom in a sheet. Then, disturbingly, he sleeps next to her body in his bedroom. When he wakes up in the morning, still Sunday the 12th, he begins using his phone to look up the chemicals used to dissolve a body. He then goes to DIY shops to purchase supplies in order to carry this out. At 12:38, Pacto messages his flatmate, asking what time he's returning home from his hill walking with his mother, who'd stayed over the previous night. His flatmate said he wouldn't be back until 8 p.m. Pacto then sets about trying to dispose of Karen's body and any evidence that might be left over. He removed Karen's clothing, filled the bath with the caustic soda, and put her in this liquid for several hours. He then tried to clean the blood from his bedroom and from around the flat. Returning to the bath, Pacto realised that Karen's body was not going to be gone by the time his flatmate returned, so he used a knife to create a cut down the middle of her chest in the effort for more of the liquid to enter her body. After this still didn't have the desired effect, Pacto took Karen's body out of the bath and drained it. He wrapped her in his duvet and locked his bedroom door with a padlock. Around 8 p.m, his flatmate returned with his mother to find Pacto cleaning the hallway and the stairwell that led up to the flat. Pacto once again goes to sleep in his room with Karen's body beside him, wrapped in the duvet. On Monday the 13th of April, Pacto wakes up early and once again sets about covering up the murder he has committed. At 5 a.m, he goes to a nearby bridge overlooking a canal and throws the spanner that he used to murder Karen into the water. He then drives to a nearby Tesco supermarket, and whilst there he asks an employee for recommendations of how best to remove blood from bedding and a mattress, and which products he should buy to do this. He drives to a different Tesco and purchases a lighter and some flammable white spirit. At around 6:30 a.m, he then makes his way to High Craigton Farms and sets about burning Karen's clothing and some items from his flat that were covered in her blood. After he's finished, he then orders a blue barrel from a local company and drives to collect this from their premises. On his way back home, he stops to buy more caustic soda and some Drainum blocker. When he gets to his flat around 10 a.m, he ties an extension cable and some brown parcel tape around Karen's body, and he puts her in the barrel. He ties up the mattress and is then seen by a neighbour trying to put this into his car. Once again, Pacto drives to the farm to burn the mattress, bedding and a suitcase that was covered in Karen's blood. At 11:20 am, he arrives back to his flat and now pours the drain unblocker and the caustic soda into the barrel with Karen's body. At 2 p.m, another neighbour witnessed Pacto struggling with the barrel as he tried to bring it down the stairs and into the back of his car. Once he succeeded with this, he then drove to an Asda supermarket to purchase some more white spirits and some padlocks before making his way back to the farm again. He inquires at the farm about renting a storage unit from the owner, and once this is agreed on, he puts the barrel into the storage shed, locking it with the padlock and locking the door of the storage shed as well. Finally, at 4:15 in the afternoon, Pacto took his car to get it cleaned inside and out in order to get rid of any traces of evidence that might be left over. This was the same day that the police knocked on his door and spoke to him for the first time. On Friday the 17th of April, Alexander Pacto was formally charged with the murder of Karen Buckley. On August the 11th, Pacto appeared in the High Court in Glasgow, where he pled guilty. He was given a life sentence with the possibility of parole after 23 years. The judge described Pacto as a callous and calculating man who told a tissue of lies to distress the Buckley family. Alexander Pacto has been in trouble in prison, and sources that spoke to the press said that he was part of a group that had deliberately damaged CCTV and their prison cells. He has also had to be moved to a different prison due to the risk of being attacked by the other inmates. Karen's family made a formal statement after the sentencing in which they thanked Police Scotland and the locals for their help and work in seeking justice for their daughter. In 2016, Karen's father collected her master's degree from the university on her behalf. As we come to the end of the podcast, I wanted to take a moment to remember Karen for her kindness, her desire to help others, and for the love that she had for her family, who meant everything to her. It was clear that she was very admired and loved by those who had the privilege to know her. Thank you for listening to this podcast. If the platform you are listening on allows reviews, I'd be grateful to hear what you think, and I hope to see you in the next episode.